Hello and welcome to Experiment Lab, the daily show with JK. I'm JK, your host. I'm joined by my co-host Amar. Good morning, Amar. Let's find the truth. Welcome.
Yeah, hi Zaki. Good morning.
Yes, it's Monday morning and it's Juneteenth. Do you know that?
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Yes. So there won't be any much activity, but still we can talk about it, right? So as part of our experiment lab,
But
we
as you are mentioned that no activity is happening there, but I'm getting lots of call and emails from the recruiter side.
yes, that is the main thing like I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Because it is kind of a tricky thing, right? This is a recent one, and most people just don't go by the federal holiday as well. It differs from place to place, right? Let's
Yeah,
wait for our teammates to join, and then like we
yeah,
can talk
sure,
about it.
sure, sure.
Cowboy hat. Who's that? Did we have a new person joining in?
Just a moment. Let me rectify the background. It's not clear. So let me do that. We'll just come back again. Allow me a moment.
Hi,
Uh,
Nate. Good morning. Are you able to
Morning.
hear us? So we just kickstarted this week, and being Monday and also Juneteenth, I was mentioning that like today we may not have much activity in our experiment lab. So let's find the truth about what is Juneteenth and why do we have this. Though it's a federal holiday, many people don't know that, and it's kind of a regional thing. And with protest and other thing happening around, you guys can go ahead and share your thoughts and we can talk about it. You are on mute, Iftikhar.
I'm hearing it for the first time. I mean, what is happening? I have no idea about it.
The Juneteenth is like the Emancipation Day. So that is the day to celebrate the freeing of the slaves in American history.
Oh, okay, great.
So how the people celebrating this day?
But I mean, what about the slavery? I mean, H-1B slavery, slavery day. When it is going to be celebrated then? There must be some other specific day.
Well, again, historical context, right? Nate, you can give the updates since Iftikhar and Amar are new to it and they have no idea about American history. The joke apart, like what Iftikhar mentioned, we can talk about it at the end.
All right. I'll just bring up the Wikipedia page really quick. Yeah, it said that this is for the order by Major General Gordon Granger proclaiming freedom for enslaved people in Texas on June 19th, 1865. So 1865 is the first year of the Civil War that I know. This major in Texas, that's the first time I've heard about that. But yeah, Abraham Lincoln is the one who was president at the time, and he's the one who signed into law a ban on slavery that you cannot own a person as property anymore. And this caused a rift between the North and the South, because in the South there were a lot of plantations, and slave labor was a key part of the economy in the South. Most of the landowners in the South owned plantations, and they were harvesting mostly cotton, but other tobacco and other things. And making slavery illegal meant that they would have to hire a bunch of people and pay them, and many of them resisted to that. And I guess some felt that they wouldn't be able to afford to hire someone, or that they didn't want to. So they revolted, and they decided that they wanted to secede and become a different country. Abraham Lincoln made a difficult decision to either, his two choices were either to allow them to cede from the Union and become a new country, or to go to war with them to force them to remain a part of the United States. And he chose that. He chose to go to war, and it was the most bloody and worst war in American history from a standpoint of casualties, because both sides are American. But the result of it is that African Americans are free now. And
But-
even after Civil War ended, it didn't the issues for African Americans did not end there by any means. So Ulysses S. Grant was a famous general for the North, and he became president next. And he was elected president next, and he was in charge of the kind of rebuilding and the reunification of the country, which he's been criticized a lot in American history books for not doing that effectively. And because he did not do that effectively, there was, for a long time, still a lot of difficulties for African Americans, and the country, the cultures did not really mesh. The differences between North and South, which before the war, that was not really a thing, North and South. But then after the war, it still was, and it remained that way for a long time. And some people even feel that there is still kind of a division between North and South.
Yeah, those kind of historical things, right, are quite fascinating, how people are divided, and to the current event, right, to the current date. I don't know, where do we draw that line of North and South? I still don't get it quite well, because Nate, as you mentioned, right, even Texas was a separate country altogether, and then during this, like the Civil War, like all that happened, right, going back and forth. So for various reasons, right, we are not able to relate to it and understand why these struggle happened and why it continues to happen, to the point where this modern slavery happens in different forms, right? So
Well, slavery goes back to biblical times, and even before that. It's been a part of human civilization since the beginning, all the way up until pretty recently. Even the Greeks, they used to enslave their own people. The Spartans, they used to enslave the neighboring cultures. Anyone who was not a Spartan within the Greek region or an Athenian. They became the slaves of the Spartans. And it was brutal, but that was the way it was back then. It was Greeks enslaving Greeks. So imagine for people to enslave their own people, how barbaric that is, but that's the way it was back then. And that's why humans need very specific laws. They need very specific guidance to tell them what's right and wrong. Because if they don't have those rules and those laws in place, they can be very animalistic and very barbaric. They need to be taught what's right and wrong from a young age.
So anything that you guys want to relate to or add to it, Amar, Ithika, from your standpoint, right? So the conflict also exists in your countries, and how you see that and how you correlate to this Americans Emancipation Day, that is like ending the slavery and trying to preach to the world that like we are moving forward as a more civilized nation, right? In terms of United Nations and human rights and all those things. It's not even 100 years, but still going back to old countries like India or other civilization. How do you guys see this?
I think it's from in my point of view, I mean, this gap actually is being created by, well, if the slavery has been finished, or if you talk about the other countries, anything, the differences that's been created, and if the gap has been finished, then again the gap is being created just to take the benefit of the politically. Otherwise, if you go and talk about the ground level, people doesn't bother about those things. But when you brain, when you brainwash those people politically, obviously then they come into that phase. That is my point of view. Otherwise, a person, what he need to live a life? He need some money, he works, he earn money and live a life peacefully. But when political influence that comes, obviously then the things go wrong.
Is the same thing happening in your country also, Ithika? I mean, slavery?
Slavery part is not happening here. No slavery. But I'm talking about the differences. Have any differences?
Mhm.
Well, the
So
historical context, right? Again, in terms of, I don't know whether this applies to what we are talking about, the slavery and how the Black people have been enslaved and they got their freedom by this moment. You cannot compare it with other historical events happening. But to date, we all know that Indian system goes by the caste, right? That caste discrimination, the Western society are not able to understand that, which is more of what Nate mentioned. For me, like it's degrading their own people, those who are in their own religion, by whatever they call it. As I may not say it right, but as per the Vedic things, some people even say that, right? So there is no religion called Hinduism. It was the westernized way of looking at everything into one umbrella and say that this is the Hinduism. But as per the Vedic practice, still there is a caste system that creates this untouchable and degrades their own people and discriminate them. And that is still happening. And historically, if you speak, that is the reason many people even got converted to Christianity or Islam or Buddhism. All that happened over there. And even the struggle with unification of it, right? Just like how the United States was formed when 75 years before British wanted to make an exit, they created a problem by bringing in the religious divide, and the country was divided into India and Pakistan. And all the separate kings tried to gather and come together to India, where the delay happened with Kashmir, and that became a conflict zone for 70 plus years, right? Even still, both the countries are claiming and they are fighting each other. This is continuous, right? Everywhere it continues. And that was the reason like why even Amar was born here. I mean, in a joking way, right? Bangladesh was formed from Pakistan, East Pakistan, and India's interference into that war and helping them to create a separate nation based on the ethnic language. So this is always going to be there, right? Even now, I hear a lot of political debate going on between South and North in India, just like based on the language.
Correct. But that is very well. Can I share my screen and show you a news? Just want to. This keeps happening.
Yeah, again, right? Anything that I wanted to share a few things as well, but since
Go ahead, please.
started removing our videos, even some of our videos have been removed. I wanted to talk about that. I don't know what violation, right? Nate mentioned it, right? That's a good point. Even at a domestic level, domestic abuse and a problem between two people, right, in relationship happens, and it gets nasty and ugly if we don't set boundaries and set certain rules. That's one point I agreed. What we have to stick to the code of conduct and not to violate the YouTube platform, because they are providing us this platform to promote or share our views or run this daily show or whatever that we are doing. But in that, we are struggling to understand. We have, from our understanding, we have just shared the screen and showed what is happening to find the truth in terms of our experiment. But then they just going by AI or by even by manual human process, they still come back and say like, okay, you have violated our community guidelines and rules, so we are taking down the video, and they are removing it. So that's constantly happening. That's why like I'm just trying to be very cautious here, like not to share.
Okay, I understand. I'm not going to share it. I understand. It will definitely be removed then.
No, I mean, you can just show it like for a few seconds and then like we can just talk about it, right? That way, I don't think there will be a problem because playing the videos or music.
It's not a video, it's news.
Yeah, if it's a news article, go ahead. Like you can share that.
Look at this. Dalit groom on a horse dragged down beaten because he belongs to lower caste, and he sit on the horse on his marriage ceremony. So this is why. And let me show one more thing. There are so many things out there. I mean, let me share this. Wearing shoes. I mean, look at the headline. Threatened for riding horse. Threatened for riding horse. It's lower caste. Killed for sitting cross-legged. Royal shoes. beaten for wearing royal shoes. Violence over Facebook name. So these are the things happening actually. So many things are there. See, Dalit is also a part of the same religion, Hindu religion, but they are considered as the lower caste. And according to some people, that they cannot live like that way. This is why he was beaten.
Nate, any comments, any thoughts as per your knowledge or experience visiting India?
Regarding the caste system, I mean, I knew about it before I arrived and I discussed it a little bit. But from an outsider, I mean, it's hard to really see it and understand it without somebody really pointing it out to you and showing it. But yeah, I mean, clearly, I think having a caste system is not fair. It's not right.
Yeah, this is happening everywhere, right? Also in Asia and also in Europe, as I know, because black and white discrimination is still happening. I know that, right?
See, Europe, you will not find that. I mean, because you will not find black people in Europe, right? I believe that. And you won't find any difference. If there is also exists, you won't find any differences there in Europe.
Yeah, people are migrating there, and
Is
it's
this a
happening.
kind of issue in Europe? I don't think so. Is it?
Europe has African European people
Okay.
as well. They're immigrants, most of them, or they were immigrants from their parents or grandparents. The British Empire stretched pretty far, went through Africa, obviously went through Central Asia and India, and so people from the empire, people from Africa immigrated there years ago. French also in France. France has had a lot of territories in Africa, North Africa, and other parts of Africa, other countries. So there are many African French descendant people living there. Yeah, and a lot of other countries in Europe have some Black people living there.
So how do we address this, right? So how do we? It's a global problem, right? So it's not just going to impact only one side of the world or one sector, right? It's like it's not going to impact me. So we all come across this, right? So how do we then find solution? How do we relate?
Find a solution to what?
This existential problem of the humans to understand and move forward, right? So still why we are stuck when we have so much of knowledge and evidence that we are not in any way different from others. As a human race, we are all the same species. Even the animals, right? Even in the animal kingdom, they don't do that within their own species. That's why, like, it is looking very strange, and what actually went wrong in the evolution process.
I think that if you look at the timeline from a standpoint of generations or like people's lives, it looks like a long time. It looks like things are progressing really slowly. But if you zoom out and you look at the progression over the past like 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, we've come a long way. So, I mean, there are people who are still alive who survived the Holocaust. My grandmother's 100 years old. She survived the Holocaust. The next generation after her did not have to go through that. And the next generation after that was, I guess you could say, kind of Martin Luther King's generation, or the generation who was given equal rights in the United States as a result of Martin Luther King. And then the generation after that, you know, things are beginning to be more normalized. Not that anything was perfect, but then maybe 1 or 2 generations after that, you have a Black president in the United States. So I don't think that the progress is not there. I mean, it's clearly it is, but it's not comprehensive. It's not everybody. There are still many people who are racist, and you know, that's really a shame. I think over time that will slowly go away. It already is slowly getting better. And I think in another 2, 3, 4 generations that we'll be looking back on this time period, and we'll be surprised that even some of the things that have happened, like George Floyd and things like that, that we'll be surprised that took place.
Yeah, well, hopefully that gives us some closure with our effort on what Iftikhar you are mentioning about how do we stop this modern slavery. Then this fight is a long drawn battle. Again, nobody knows about it and nobody even want to talk about it. So we are trying to put in an effort, and we had an interesting conversation. We are trying to bring those guests into our daily show, but that's being difficult. Like, we are trying to focus on the weekend, and Hamar had the privilege to meet with the recruiter, and she's a young, talented, smart recruiter who has her own channel, and she is doing her own effort in silos, right? Many people are talking about these kind of abuses. Once we organize and bring in everybody into the movement and then make the voice heard, then probably we can address these issues. So that's all I can say for today. And let's celebrate the Juneteenth and give a high five to everyone. Maybe it's not just about Black. And we'll sign off for today. What do you guys say?
Yeah, we can celebrate the holiday.
All right. That's all for today. Thank you all. Bye for now.